Open the meeting at 6. Open the meeting at 6. So why don't we start off with the normal sort of COVID-19 disclaimer, Ryan?
Yes. We'll read that now. So this is a virtual meeting statement. This meeting is being recorded and is in compliant with the OML, and this statement is required. So pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the Hubbardston Board of Selectmen will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and the general guidelines for remote participation by members of the public and/or parties with a right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town website, hubbardstonma.us. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure the public can adequately access this. We did that by posting the virtual login with the agenda, and this meeting will be posted after on the town website for people to review the recording as soon as possible.
Okay, and this was a emergency, might be a little strong for a word for a meeting, but this is out of the ordinary meeting, but it was posted in time within the required 48 hours. Okay, is anyone here for open session? Is there anyone on the on there, Ryan, that we can't see?
There is not, just us.
Okay, so do you have any announcements you want to get to?
Just that tomorrow, that porch sing-along that the Economic Development Committee is running, the police and fire have, they'll have sirens. They've actually found a bagpipe player to come and kick this thing off at 6. The schedule's posted online. Every 10 minutes or so is a new song to sing on your porch. Please send us videos. We'd like to put together a nice collage of videos just to do something fun on a Saturday night when the world is like this. So looking forward to that. Thanks to our Police, Fire, Economic Development Committee for putting that together.
That's great. Over under on 10 of how many people are scared who call the police anyway because they're nervous about what's going on.
That's a good over under.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll just get right into it here. We're here to talk about things related to the election and nomination papers and all that stuff, sort of elaborating on what we had talked about during our last meeting, you know, us being in an unfortunate circumstance of where our town meeting happens to normally be early in June versus where current legislation has allowed towns to push things off of. So, you know, I don't think we have to probably recreate everything, Ryan, but just in case people are interested either watching or going to be watching this after, can you give us the Cliff's Notes version?
Sure, and then Lori can tell you what's happened since she opened the nomination papers. But real brief, essentially the state allowed people to push some of those early elections later, and they did a good job with the legislation capturing those early elections. So people got their nomination papers, realized they couldn't do the election, and then pushed their election into June. For us late election types like Hubbardston, they didn't really do a good job addressing how we're going to do the nomination process. So you have to turn in nomination papers 49 days prior to the election, which for us, as Lori stated last time, is April 21st. And and we knew this was coming, as soon as we released the nomination paper information, we got many concerns from the public, written and phone calls, about how do we get nominations safely during the peak of this COVID-19 crisis. So that's kind of the summary of what's going on. And Lori, I don't know if you want to talk quickly about what you've gotten since you released that information.
I mean, I've received emails just, you know, again, with concerns of people going out and collecting signatures and meeting with people, especially with the social distancing, you know,
recommendations.
I think of the word, but order in effect. There we go. I got it. So I did have 5 people come in and pull papers. The concern is, you know, 2 weeks of trying to meet somebody. Most people are okay with it. They know, you know, they're going to take any precautions they can. but it's for the people that are concerned. I did talk to people. I have given each person pulling papers 25 sheets of paper. Said that they can use their own pen. They could be mailed to me, whatever they prefer. Husband and wife, they live in a house if they want to sign one, so they can return more to me. I told them seniors are out every Friday. They can go kind of to their food drive-through to collect signatures. There are a couple essential businesses in town that are open. They can collect signatures from them. Again, people using their own pens, or them having gloves, or anything that would make them feel comfortable. Calling and texting people to mail them to them. I just think after the response when it came out that giving people 2 weeks, didn't sit very well with them, especially in the light of what's going on. So I think, 3 more weeks on it would be helpful. And like I said, hopefully we'll be coming, down the curve. The curve will be flattening by then.
Yep, no, agreed. Or I guess further legislation comes out allowing for further extensions, which we, again, I think we gave it as much effort as we could at the time. Just so happened to be where our town meetings were. People across the state have town meetings anywhere from March to June, pretty much, right?
Right. And I have a big spreadsheet. I mean, the town clerk groups are great. They send out a lot of information to each other, just letting people know what's going on. I mean, a lot of ours a lot of town clerk or town meetings and town elections have been moved from March or April, and they're being moved, to around the time that ours is. So ours, although it felt good to kind of keep it where it is, keep it, the concerns again came out. So pushing it will buy people 3 weeks. It will give them, like I said, more time to collect signatures. And then, like I said, if something happens and we can do something, the biggest thing that I'm letting people know is our hands are bound. We're tied by state law, and Hubbardston is not unique in it. Every state or every town in Massachusetts is dealing with the same thing. We can only do so much, and the absolute deadline right now for the state of Massachusetts is June 30th. So for the people that are questioning why can't we push it off further, we can't, and that's the state. Which there's been a lot of stuff back and forth, and again, it's not saying that it's not going to change, but we have to go with what we have for now.
Okay, so there's a couple things to just consider. One is, do we want to pick a date? Which is, I think we want to do is pick a date for whether or not we all want to vote to push off the town meeting a bit, which then sort of dominoes nomination papers and all that. So a few things to consider. One of them, which is a weird thing to consider, but you got Copeland and Page, right, who are 75% of the towns. They have attorneys, and if everybody's going to be pushing their meeting to like the same day or week or whatever, we have to probably consider that, Ryan.
So Dan, we wouldn't be moving well, you could move the meeting if you want, but this is the election.
Right. No, I know. But I mean, as we're discussing each of these topics, I think that one's still on the table too. But yeah, I hear you. But I guess that was just one of the things to consider. If we are going to be moving the town meeting, then that's something to consider. But it doesn't feel like we're doing that quite yet. But if we are, that final date is the end of June.
Yes.
June 30th.
Okay. So what do you recommend based on all this discussion we've had?
So because of course there's a caveat. So I did talk with Town Council today, Carolyn Murray. So the legislation has two parts that addresses this. It says that the executive body, which is you, the Board of Selectmen, is allowed to move the election based off the circumstances. And then there's another section that's very specific, and it says bodies like yours are allowed to move the election in between March and if the election is established between March and May 30th. And ours is June 9th. So there is that language in there that I guess someone could sue us and could challenge us that because the language is so specific in the law that was rushed and written to address COVID-19, there is a little bit of a sticking point in that we're not in that window. Ours is established. Now you'd have to define established. You'd have to define whether or not it didn't meet the letter of the law or the spirit of the law. So Town Council believes that it is your right to move. I don't believe that a challenge would be successful, but did want to bring that up to you because the language of the law is not good. And just secondly, she added that we are not the only town struggling with this 49-day buffer. They didn't think about it when they did this legislation. They were just trying to help the early folks. She does believe that legislation will change, but definitely not before Easter, she said, and probably not for a couple weeks, which doesn't help us since our nomination papers are due. So
All right, well, I mean, in my opinion, it's kind of a no-brainer. So my recommendation, maybe to us here, the board, is maybe just to move things along. Is if somebody wants to make a motion to do that, and then we can proceed, and then we'll get into discussion. And then if we want a discussion while there's a motion on the table, we could further do that versus trying to discuss all of it, unless you guys are against it. But if we're for it, maybe we can move the process along by starting that motion process and then getting into discussion.
What's the motion for? We've covered,
The election.
right now, it seems to be talking about everything.
The election.
Nomination papers, we mentioned the election, now town meeting. What motion are you looking?
Just the election, because that'll move everything else besides the town meeting, which we can push to the side. So just the election.
And do we have a date for that?
Yeah. I'll make the motion to move the election forward.
To,
second the motion.
okay, and I didn't actually hear it, Pat, but was in your motion to June 30th?
Yes.
Okay.
June 30th.
Jamie, you gonna amend that?
Amend that to June 30th. I'll second.
Second it. Okay, so now we're in discussion. So we're in discussion. This motion's on the table to move the election to the 30th, which then, you know, we can subtract 49 days from, right, Lori? Okay, so we can subtract 49 days from when the papers are due and all that, so it gives the extension there. Is there any further discussion, I guess, on this from either anyone on the board or anybody else here on their opinions?
One thing I was curious about, what manner are we going to be able to try to notify all of the town voters that the date has in fact been moved?
So we will use all the means that we have to include our cheese board signs, the town website posting, ballots, making sure all the candidates know, making sure any candidates that have come and pulled papers know that this has changed as much as we can.
Is this something that we could put a flyer out on? And could the I'm just saying out of the box, could the post office put a delivery with people's mail so they each get something in their box?
Well, let me just, if I could just comment real quick.
Explaining everything that's going on and why,
Okay, if I could just comment real
as
quick.
well as the date for the elections.
Okay, if I could just, I guess, comment real quick. So everyone who would have found out about there being elections and nomination papers in the first place will find out about this because it's through the same avenues the normal notifications would be. So I guess that would be my initial way. I'm hesitant to recommend putting things that people touch, you know, into mailboxes and stuff. You know, I don't know if that's what people are really going to want either, as far as notifications. I don't know what you guys think, but feels like if we notify, we put the notification out like we put for every other notification, the people who you know, would have seen it in the first place would see this as well. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, my thought on that was simply to how it would affect the turnout for the vote, considering some of the things that are going to be on the warrant, etc. We want people to turn out for the vote.
We do, Lori, before you go, just so you know, Jeff, we can almost not hear you at all. So that the connection's really, really bad. So it's hard for us to understand exactly what you're saying. But before you speak again, because it's hard, Lori, can you go ahead?
Sure. So last week, and I don't think we ever posted it online, I actually talked to the Gardner News. they had reached out to me asking me what was going on with the election. I gave them all the information because at that point in time, we were keeping everything on track. So after this meeting, I figured I would contact him and let him know. So there was an article that was published in the Gardner News
Saw that.
giving our deadlines. So I will reach out to them again. We can definitely change the signs in town. And also our town meeting is still going to be held before the town election, so that's a good way to put out information there as well. So, I mean, just kind of word of mouth, the people that had pulled papers already, I did notify them that they were having, that we were having this meeting, and that it was probably going to change. And I said, and as soon as it does, I will, let them know the new dates of everything that's due. So that will be, they're already forewarned this is happening.
How does that sound, Jeff?
Sounds okay. I'm having trouble hearing. I hear you fine, and Laurie, I barely hear you at all. So I heard sound okay. I keep getting a message on my screen. My internet connection is unstable, so I don't know what's
It's correct.
going on.
Okay. All right. Well, we're in discussion. There's stuff you can type as well. Jeff, you can still hear us as far as contributions. Jamie actually typed in maybe small banners on the welcome to Hubbardson sign, which I think is a good idea. I mean, that's something easy enough to put there, right? Anyway, we're still in discussion. If anyone wants to continue to talk about this, Lori?
We have the signs, again, the electronic sign, we have the sign. I have a sandwich board sign that says nomination papers are due, or pick up. I can probably change that a little bit. If you really wanted to do something, you could even get those little like stick in the ground signs. They're pretty reasonable through like Staples and stuff, that just says town election has been moved. I don't know.
Well, you know what? I mean, our motives are pure here, right? We're doing what we should be doing for the benefit of everybody involved. And we're making it as public as we can to the community. So, there's only so much we can do. People have to take the responsibility to investigate this stuff themselves. So I say we move it as far as we can. It's the right thing to do all the way around, and do as much as we can to get the word out. But, the community has to do their part too. And try and research this if they're interested in getting to the election or running for an office.
Okay, well said. Further discussion, anybody? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote. It's going to be roll call. So Dan, yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Jamie?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.
Okay, it's unanimous. Okay. So what's next, Ryan?
All right, so next, and the reason why Sandy's here, besides that she loves coming to these meetings, is we want to talk about some relief options that other communities have been doing for, and that's allowed by Mass General Law for our taxpayers. So what's called, basically there's 3 local options that are available to the board right now that we'd like you to consider, and we'll give some recommendations. So the first allows you to move the due date of the real estate tax bills and the tax bills to June 1st, which provides some relief. The next one allows you to waive interest and penalties and fees, etc., but keep the same date. And then the third option is to allow for tax exemptions and deferrals, that deadline to move from April 1st to June 1st. So we do have Sandy here. If Sandy, you want to go over a couple of these options and what it means, and then we'd be looking for the board to give us some guidance on what you'd want to do.
Sure. So one of the options is to move the due date of the tax bills from May, our tax bills are due May 4th, to June 1st. Originally, my thought was, yeah, I want to help out people as much as we can as well. And I took into consideration that lots of the tax bills, and I came up with a number of about 920 of our tax bills are paid through tax services. So the people have already had their money taken out with their mortgage payment and it's been held, and then they just send us one lump check for all those properties. And I thought, well, okay, you know, for everybody else, that's fine. But then I got mail from the mortgage company saying, asking if we're going to move those tax dates. They want to know about it because they're going to hold on to that money as long as they can and earn the interest on it, to make money for their companies like Wells Fargo and Chase and all the big banks. And that represents almost $1 million in tax money. And normally I would still say, okay, that's fine. But we have a payment due to the Quabbin Regional School District on May 15th of over $1 million. And if we don't have the money from the tax services, we're not going to have enough money to pay Quabbin. So I reached out to Cheryl Muir at Quabbin and I said, would it be okay if we move this tax date, if we could pay part of the assessment on May 15th and pay the balance on June 15th, and the taxes would all be due by then, it wouldn't be a problem. And the response I got back from her was she would have to check with the district treasurer to see what their cash flow issues are, because they're still paying their teachers and everything. And I don't have an answer from her yet. So I'm looking at it from the point of view right now as we're going to have to make that Quabbin payment. And I don't know that, I highly doubt there will be enough money if I don't have those payments from the tax services.
What if we don't pay that Quabbin payment and just wait?
I don't know.
Ooh, let's find out.
I do.
Oh, good.
So if we didn't have enough money to pay our bills, what we would have to do is do a short-term borrow in order to have the cash in order to pay our bills, because we're required to pay our bills. So the schools would have to do the same thing. So if they didn't have our revenue, which is the money that we pay to them in our assessment, then they would have to borrow money, which has fees, et cetera. So basically, we'd all be using the same money to accomplish the same thing. So they're in the same boat as us. If they can't make their bills, they got to borrow, and then they end up charging us for that. So it's not a great solution.
It's not, but I would suspect that, you know, they're a $35 million business, right? So they may have the money to be able to handle this for a few weeks, versus us.
Yeah, and I do think that, and we're not the only town asking for this across the Commonwealth. I do think that there'll be some type of split payment, whether it's 75, 80, and then we pay more, because people are going to have trouble paying their tax bills. And
Yeah.
as Sandy said, if we let the banks delay the payment, then we're going to have trouble paying our bills just based off cash flow.
Yeah, our cash flow is not at a place where I could pay the Quabbin payment and then refill the coffers afterwards. The money we get in for taxes represents pretty much Quabbin's payment with a little left over. And as far as borrowing, I mean, we could do a short-term borrow, but the expense to the town would be not just interest, but there's fees involved with the borrowing. The borrowing I just did for the library, the CPA, to refinance the library roof. I just got a bill today or yesterday for $1,100 just for our fiscal advisors who do all the legwork and the paperwork as far as that borrow goes. So there would be substantial expenses involved that the town would also have to consider.
Lori?
There's no way to do one, like you can't make it an extension for residents paying out of pocket versus it's just
No,
across the board.
no, No, it's all or nothing.
So Sandy, describe if we weren't to charge fees. Can you explain how that relates to this decision?
So normally with the taxes due the beginning of May, we would start charging interest within 3 or 4 days after the taxes are due. We charge interest from the date they should have paid till the date that they do pay. And usually once May 20th rolls around, we mail out demand bills that adds another $30 per bill. And interest to remind taxpayers that, hey, it's time, you didn't pay your bill, time to pay. So waiving those fees would definitely be advantageous to our taxpayers under these financial situations. And I would totally be willing to waive those fees. And you know, that would go for not only real estate and personal property, but it would go for excise tax bills and anything that was due between May 10th and June 30th. We would forgive all those interest and fees.
If you had to just, out of the blue, approximate a percentage of bills that are paid late on an annual basis, what would you throw out there?
I usually send out of, well, we have what, 2,800 real estate tax bills. We usually send out roughly 500 demand bills.
Oh.
Yeah,
Okay, that's a bunch.
yeah.
There are compromise here. It sounds as if our hands are tied as far as changing the date for the taxes to be paid, but could we compromise here, waive the fees and the penalties?
I think that's what Jamie said too. Jamie, correct me. Jamie has a comment that says, I would suggest leave the due date the same, but extend the late due date.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
That's the finance team's recommendation, is to
Yeah.
Leave the date so that the escrowed payments, or 80 to 90% of our taxes, come in on time so we can pay our bills. But for those who are struggling and can't pay their bills, they have the ability to pay us over time or to not get charged interest while they come up with the payment.
Due to the fact that,
Great.
right, and due to the fact that it's a domino effect, as we talked about before, with, you know, the school having to pay their bills and the people that get the, you know, from the school has to pay their bill, all that sort of stuff, that seems to make sense to me too.
Yeah. You know, if we had an extra $1 million hanging around to make that Quabbin payment, I would gladly hold off and allow, you know, the taxpayers the opportunity to wait and pay their bills June. But we just don't have that kind of cash flow in Hubbardston.
That's why we gave the complete attention to marijuana that we did.
Right.
I don't
So
think that's not best practices to have that much cash on hand, Ryan, correct?
What's that?
I said that's not part of best practices to have $1 million cash on hand, correct?
We don't normally, so
we don't.
we
But
don't
that
have to
wouldn't
worry
be,
about
what
it.
he's saying is that wouldn't be best practice to just have that and not have it in other sort of ways that are better protected, or, you know, for long-term future savings and growth and all that.
Oh, I just want to make it clear, we don't have
Yeah.
$1 million ever on hand. It's always in an interest earning account as part of our
Yeah.
local receipts, and Sandy does a great job making money on that.
Yeah,
So,
no, I think we know that. That was,
So can I ask a question?
Mhm.
of course.
So if we do as is suggested, and the people whose taxes are escrowed with their mortgage pay on the original due date, would we have enough in the budget to pay that Quabbin payment?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
But we can't we can't say that the mortgage companies or the tax services have to pay by May 4th, and the residents that don't have escrow can pay by June 1st.
Can't do that.
No.
Right.
Yeah, I think Chris's question sort of nails it there.
Yeah. So the logical solution is the suggestion here in the chat box, right? I mean, that seems like the best case scenario.
Right, right. Because those people, even if they can't pay their taxes until June 1st, there aren't going to be any interest penalties or demand fees or anything added to their bills. It would be the same amount either way.
Right, and let's remember this is a serious situation, and it can extend, and people still may not be able to pay their taxes on June 1st. So
Right.
something's got to give here. Something higher than Hubbardston, something higher than Massachusetts is going to give here sooner or later, because we're just starting to see the fallout from this whole disaster on the financial markets. So all we can do is do what we can do, and I like the suggestion on the board there. If we go with that, we'll see what happens and see how this thing plays out.
So just so we're clear, the suggestion on the board, not from the board, the suggestion on the board right now is not an indefinite extension on interest and late fees. It is a specific time frame to June 1st at this point, and then we can always readdress. Am I understanding that right?
No, the fees and interest would be waived till June 30th.
30th, okay.
Just so those people who are watching are clear on this, we are only allowed to do this because we're not normally. We're only allowed to do this because the state has granted us the ability to have this local option. Normally, the state controls what we can or cannot do here.
Okay. Sounds like it's, unless there's further discussion, which we can discuss during a motion too. Obviously, we would have to make a motion, correct, to extend this?
Yeah, and it's a specific one. So if that's what the board's talking about, then this is what the motion would look like. Got a few versions of this. So it would be this motion right here. If someone wants to make it.
I'll make the motion if you can hear me.
For
Are
now,
you hearing me? Okay. I move to accept by local option in accordance with Chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020, Section 11, which allows the town to waive interest on certain payments made after due dates.
I'll second that.
is there any discussion? Okay. Roll call vote. Dan, yes. Jeff?
He's frozen.
I'll go back.
Yes.
Okay, I got that. Jamie?
Yes.
Chris?
Yeah.
Pat?
Yes.
Okay, unanimous.
And then
Okay.
so that's the first two. The last one is certain populations are able to file for exemptions, most notably our seniors and veterans. Those were due April 1st. This one local option would allow certain taxpayers to file those exemptions, those who are eligible, up until June 1st, if you're willing to do that. Now, this doesn't affect that many people, and it might not affect anybody. But if someone did need this exemption, it would be a really big deal. So the Board of Assessors and the assessing team, RRG, has recommended that we pass this just in case there's anyone out there who needs to file this exemption late in order to get a little bit of a break on their taxes.
So just so we understand it, you've called it an exemption. It's an exemption to pay taxes, basically an extension.
So I'll give the most famous one. If you're a disabled veteran of over 30% by the VA, you get $400 off your taxes, but you have to file that. You have to file it every year in order to get that exemption. So if you miss the filing because of this mess, this would give you another couple months to get that in.
Okay.
Give us a couple months. There's some big ones for widows, in the veteran world especially, and then some senior citizen discounts as well. So these are populations that everyone has said deserves these certain exemptions from taxes, this gives them more time to file it. Because if you don't file it, you don't get it.
Is there a motion specifically to read on this as well?
If that's what, if the board's willing to entertain that, I do have a motion for it. Looks like this.
Looks like it.
Take that out, so no one reads it. This would be the motion here.
Make a motion, I move to accept by the local option in accordance with Chapter 53 of the Acts of 2020, Section 10, which allows the town to extend the due date for exemption and deferral applications from April 1st, 2020 to a date not later than June 1st, 2020. Did that go through?
Yep.
I'll second.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any discussion, question? No? Okay, roll call. Dan, yes. Jeff,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Chris? Pat,
Yes.
unanimous. Okay, I think that's the heavy
The
lifting,
reason-
all right?
The reason why we brought these to you on a Friday night quickly is because we're not meeting till April 20th, and these things need to happen before then. So I appreciate the board's time and the public understanding why we're trying to get a lot of this stuff done, and bring the experts on to help describe to our leaders why certain things should happen.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Sandy, and Lori for staying so informed, you know, because it's a lot coming at you, it looks like. And these sorts of things pop up where we just all sort of need to know what's going on. So we appreciate you staying informed.
Yeah. Happy birthday, Lori.
Happy birthday. All right, so we still have some agenda items, just, no, we don't really, but we have it on the agenda, so we might as well go through it. Is there anything else, Ryan, on that agenda that you want to bring up until we get to sort of the old business piece?
That is all we had for this evening.
Okay, well, sounds good. So nothing under new business, old business, town administrator report, policies to review, appointments, resignations, wage authorization, minutes to approve. Quick committee update, just because I got it about a half an hour ago. Because we're here, the 75% design is complete now for the town center project. It was submitted to Mass DOT today. So if you recall, last time I talked about it, the 25% hearing was a couple months or a month ago or whatever, and that was going to get real close to the 75%. So that's already in and moving. So, hopefully we can get that warrant article and support for the town meeting for the final 25% of that design. So that was just a little updated info. Matters not reasonably anticipated by the chair. I don't have any. Anyone else have anything they want to bring up?
Just a question. The things that we've been noticing on Route 68 north going towards Gardner, are they getting ready to start the project? Is that what all those signs and cones are for?
Yes.
Yes. Yep. So they're getting started first with marking and basics, and
Thank you.
that should progress. And that's already funded, so that's going to happen this summer.
Okay. Anything else from anyone?
Thank you.
Okay. Now, how about public press? Anybody jump on here, Ryan?
No.
No? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make
Make
a
a
motion to
to
adjourn.
adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, Dan. Yes.
Second
Jeff.
the motion.
Roll call, Jeff. Abstain. Jamie?
Yes. Yep.
Chris?
Yes.
Pat?
Yes.